We haven't reached peak anything. Way more oil than we even know of. And what we do know of is enough to last 100 years. So the problem is not that we have too little of it. The problem is we have too much of it. Relatively easily to extract and packs a powerful cubic meter or barrel. The plants that convert these hydrocarbons are highly reliable. The fact that we power our entire society with these fuels in the energy crisis for a relatively low, very low cost is testimony to their ubiquitous and efficient application. Well and good, except this. We're choking ourselves to death. The Earth is warming. The ice caps are melting. In fact, the Arctic ice cap has practically disappeared. The Antarctic ice cap is breaking away as we speak. Major parts of the world are on fire all year long. Sea level rising. It cannot be sustained indefinitely. That's the problem. But it is not the unsustainability that is the rub. We all know the world is heating up with catastrophic consequences for our civilization. The rub is that we do not have a viable alternative to burning hydrocarbons and maintaining our current lifestyles. That's the rub. Okay? We know that it's bad. The rub is that we don't have any way out. We all pretend we want to be green. Hold on one second, ladies and gentlemen. I have a lot to do today. Yochi, I'm on the wire. 5 minutes. Sorry. Bye. So the rub is that we don't have an alternative. Either we severely cut back on energy consumption, doing without the many benefits of profligate energy use provides, or hydrocarbon-based energy production with renewable sources. Either alternative has such enormous socioeconomic costs that realizing either is impossible. And therefore, this is the true real rub. Am I clear about this to everybody? The rub is that we don't have anywhere near the possibility, except, well, there is one possibility. I'll say that as we go on. But this idea that renewables like solar and wind are going to allow us to power our lifestyles is retarded. It's just not going to happen. There's not enough land. It's just not going to happen. We'll get into it. We're going to continue to have to burn hydrocarbons for decades to come in order to facilitate the eventual transition to a carbon neutral existence. Decades. Thinking about selling your Saudi Aramco, your Exxon, your BP, your Royal Dutch Shell, think again. We ask the question, as many do and have, is green energy genuinely realizable, or is it extravagant, intensive publicity and promotion? In other words, nonsensical hype. Well, the answer is some of both choices. A little of both. First is the hype. Viewers of Michael Moore's documentary on green energy, Planet of the Humans, did any of you have seen that? Anybody see that documentary? It's a great documentary if you like Michael Moore. It's a little dated and it's somewhat, doesn't mean it doesn't have truth in it. It does. We're exposed to some biting criticism of the green energy phenomena and the people promoting it. The documentary featured all sorts of rebukes to the enterprise of replacing hydrocarbon combustion with renewable energy production. Claims like wind generators require so much steel and concrete in their bases, both of which materials are highly carbon intensive in their production, that we would be better off burning said energy source to generate electricity directly instead of creating the huge carbon footprint inherent in establishing the wind turbine. Similarly for solar, either photovoltaic or solar concentration, that's the gimmick with the mirrors focus the sunlight, SV, the amount of CO2 produced making these renewable energy generators outweighs the benefits in reduced CO2 byproducts from the resultant green energy. Unfortunately, there are grains of truth to these claims. However, since the documentary was produced, these grains have been being near totally debunked. So that 2017 study in Nature Energy found that when accounting for manufacturing and construction, that means, when you put up one of these wind turbine things, you need hundreds of cubic meters of concrete, and concrete footprint. And you know why? Concrete is made by burning limestone. It's a tremendous carbon footprint, and it takes hundreds of tons of steel. Also, a hugely carbon process. You have to melt the steel. You have to use belching monsters. About 1/20th of those of coal and natural gas, even when the latter includes capture and storage technology. So what they're saying is the energy produced during is 26 and 44 greater than the energy to build and install them respectively. There are many life cycle assessment studies arriving at similar conclusions. Essentially debunks a lot of the claims that Moore's makes. It doesn't mean that some of those claims don't have factual. They do. But I'm trying to put things into perspective. Almost exclusively on the imperfections of technology and electric cars without considering their ability to reduce carbon and other pollutants is deeply flawed. The suggestions that because no source for are bad implies that the very existence of human civilization is the point of view that Moore's movie takes. And frankly, obviously, it's a little retarded. It is true that the carbon footprint of renewable energy is not zero, but it's lower than the fossil fuel alternatives. That's really the bottom line. Yeah, we have to heat a certain kind of silica, which is a certain kind of silica with a certain kind of coal at a very high temperature, which makes a huge carbon footprint to make those damn photovoltaic cells. And so, yeah, they have a carbon footprint. Mount them in the ground. However, once those carbon footprints are taken into account, we're still better off methods than it is generated by burning hydrocarbons. So that's the bottom line there. But again, we talked about this, we mentioned this already, and I want to keep hammering this point home. It's that the rub isn't, relative effectiveness or not. The rub is that we're never going to generate enough to power our current lifestyle. That's the point. And I'll just give you one simple example. Take the average toaster, it's about 2,500 watts. Space, the amount of, you'd have to carpet over an area about the size of a standard power the damn toaster. Right? So that's wonder what about the air conditioning system that runs day and night in hot weather? You're not going to do. You'd have to have the square foot equivalent for the entire apartment building. For my apartment, and certainly take what sits on the roof of my office building, which is an enormous industrial air conditioning plant, is not likely to be powered anytime soon by solar, photovoltaic, or sun concentrated energy sources. It's just not going to happen. In the United States has declined by about half over the past decade, and it's true that natural gas has picked up about 2/3 of that slack, but for another 1/3. By the way, I point out here that the natural gas industry, unfortunately, is plagued by billions of kilowatt hours, BTUs, cubic feet, hundreds of thousands of BTUs. It's a real pain in the ass. So I'm skipping kilowatt hours and trillion it's a pain in the neck because sometimes unfortunately, that's why I'm not going to go into it. It's more confusing than it is enlightening. Where were we? Everybody here okay? Ladies and gentlemen? Anybody? I seem to have lost people, and I don't see everybody online. Anybody out there? Ladies and gentlemen, question area, just things are good. Hello, something, let me know You can hear me and see the slides. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Anybody? Let me see if my sound check is working. Milan says the network seems bad. Sound quality coming through. So my audio indicates it is coming through. Maybe I'll cut the video out. Nobody needs. It might be weighing us down. Sounds noisy. Image good, says Jose. Your audio is a well-known problem, unfortunately. So what do you think? Should I leave the video? Who wants to see my? I can cut the video out. That will definitely lower the bandwidth requirements. Any suggestions? Audio keeps breaking up, says Milan. Yeah, I'm aware of that. Let me see what I can do. Maybe change the audio. No, I only have one off. Yeah, I only have one audio choice. That's it. All right, then. Well, I'm going to keep plowing through. Things will stay good. People can stick around. It's true that natural gas is a fossil fuel. To reach zero emissions, it must be replaced by renewables with storage and smart grids. But thus far, the path to grid decarbonization that the film somehow portrays is a failure. Moreover, the decarbonization could be accelerated through policies like pricing, pollute carbon. Once put a single second thought into policy solutions. That's a problem. Pricing carbon is in my opinion, crucial. Audio is breaking up a bit. Video okay, says Paula. All right, we'll keep on, folks. And the fact that we don't have a pricing mechanism for the carbon output is a crime, in my opinion, an absolute crime, because that's the way to solve the problem. Instead of making plane trips $150 to fly all over Europe, you make them $150, which is what the airline charges, plus the cost of disposing of the carbon or offsetting the carbon that those planes pump into the atmosphere for every mile they fly. Yeah, flying is going to get decreased, but then at least you'll have a reasonable cost or the correct cost for flying. Currently, we just use the world as a waste, a cheap, if not free, waste disposal site. There's no denying the uncomfortable truth that our more popular solutions may not be as green, sustainable, or solar panels and windmills dominate the clean energy scene and are actually doing much more harm to the environment than we might think. Green energy is not the solution to climate change, and it never was. It does not have the strength to completely replace fossil fuels, but nuclear energy does. As of 2019, 65% of Germany's energy was powered by renewable energy sources, and 48% of that came from wind turbines. Each wind turbine requires about 230 tons of steel. 230 tons of steel. This is a steel plant, okay? Carbon dioxide belching monsters. And steel making requires a very large amount of coal. And as of numbers from 2016, if the world were to have 25% of its power come completely from wind, 450 million metric tons of steel and the fossil fuel equivalent of 600 million tons of coal to make steel, coke. Moreover, all of the electricity that wind turbines produce is intermittent, while its production, installation, and maintenance all rely heavily on fossil fuels. Okay? Solar panels also have a significant carbon footprint. Are made from quartz. This is a quartz mine. Quartz is sort of silica. It's a very particular form of silica, and it requires tremendous heat down here in the plant, which has to be mined before going through an extensive heating process fueled by coal. Then turned into a form called silicon. This generates up to 4 tons of tetrachloride waste per 1 ton of polysilicon produced. Tetrachloride is a toxic chemical that, when introduced to water, can create extremely dangerous to both humans and the environment, causes acid rain. The inclusion of toxic chemicals is found in almost every step of the production process of solar panels. it's not a great solution. Half the world's photovoltaics are made in China, which has looser laws on the protection of its workers and the environment. This is China. China, as you know, has been choking itself to death for decades. All of the communist systems, anyway, have always used Mother Nature as an open sewer. That's no. The Silicon Valley Toxics Coalition has been tracking the environmental impacts of the industry since 1982. While it was created to have more transparency in the production industry, it seems to have done the opposite, as it allows companies to self-report nonsense and wastes that are expelled. According to the coalition, the number of companies willing to provide these numbers has been declining, especially among generic brand companies from China. A study released in 2014 by Northeastern University and the Argonne National Laboratory, both from Chicago, found the carbon footprint of a solar panel made in China is twice that of one made in Europe due to looser environmental restrictions and more coal-fired power plants. To get the idea, it's a filthy, disgusting process to make these green energy alternatives. So what's the answer? Do we have any hope for saving our planet while still being able to continue? It seems that the solution is nuclear, the only type of energy with an entirely containable emission. Solar farms require about 17 times more material than nuclear power plants do, and nuclear produces 4 times less carbon emissions than solar panels do. The shift from matter-dense and intermittent fuels, such as fossil fuels, solar, and energy-dense fuels, such as nuclear, is what our climate needs to heal. With less consumption. In the long run, it's much cheaper, uses less resources, and expels less waste into the environment. It's a closed system. Okay, we go back to this picture here. This is what you get. You get water vapor system. That's it. Yeah, and if you're worried about the waste, the Swedes and the Finns have figured out how to dispose of their waste. So doesn't all have to sit on site in the plants in water. It can be disposed of. The most shocking part of all this is the physics. All right, now we're going to talk about why these solutions are never something that you just don't hear about, but we need to understand. The green energy solutions that we're being sold do not actually have the energy to be able to ever completely replace fossil fuels. The physics boundary for silicon photovoltaic panels, called the Shockley-Quasier limit, and I've done the research into this. I know this is, I understand this. I won't go into the details, but suffice to say that due to the physics of light, its maximum conversion of 34% of photons into electrons is all the optimum. The best commercial technology today exceeds 26%. Wind power technology also has flaws in physics. The boundary for wind it's a maximum capture of 60% of kinetic energy in moving air. That has to do with the airfoil, the design of the airfoil, which is essentially the blade of the turbine, which is just like an airplane wing. It's an airfoil, but there's a limit to how much of the air blowing over it can actually capture and turn into motion. Commercial turbines today exceed 40%, but nuclear power ends up generating power consistently and generating enough of it to be able to completely and efficiently replace fossil fuels. We've been living in a world that hasn't put the climate or environment first in hundreds of years. Our science needs to go forward, needs to go toward clean energy that is actually clean, not just branded as such for profit. Soon enough, deserts will be covered in solar panels instead of cactuses and tops of mountains, with wind turbines instead of trees. We need to change now, a change now that is effective almost immediately, not plans to switch to green energy by 2030, which is too late. The issue of intermittence seems to constantly come up when dealing with the green energy. That means that the sun doesn't shine all the time. The wind doesn't always blow. That means that for solar panels and wind turbines to work optimally, they need to be installed en masse in huge, huge proportions and numbers. It's not going to happen because there's land available. And remember, as you emit this energy, it erodes. There's a huge decline in power simply by virtue of transmitting it over great distances. So if you're locating these solar fields in the middle of the deserts in North Africa, hoping to ship it by cables over to Europe, you're gonna lose way more energy than you'll have saved by. There's a tremendous loss. It's a degradation shipping this over the grid. Fragmentation, displacement, destruction, etc. Deserts, a very necessary biome, are often used for solar farms. Plants and animals are no longer able to inhabit the area and are forced to move or die. Evenpaw, one of California's biggest solar farms, takes 400 times more largest nuclear plant, Diablo Canyon, to produce the same amount of energy. Michael Schellenberger, an American author and environment activist, puts it best. In an effort to try to save the climate, are we destroying our environment? It's definitely food for thought. Now, another important development we seek is to impose carbon pricing into the economics of our society. Currently, the cost of pollution for any single polluter is zero. The environment functions as an open air sewer for any and all environmentally damaging greenhouse gas effluents. Think of the airlines. We all love to fly. We all love to go places and travel and see family and see exciting, interesting places. But what about the CO2 being pumped out of those engines? We're not paying for that. We pay for the fuel and the lease costs of the plane and the staffing costs of the air crew and the airport taxes. We're not paying for it. Well, that's got to end at some point. We've got to be able to put a value on that pollution and charge the people who put it into the environment for doing so. That ain't here yet. Not long ago, the same was true for much of the developed world's water resources. That was until these nations decided to clean up their respective Hydro Act to a safe disposal of toxins into the water systems of their environment. The same was true of landfill disposals of solid wastes. A similar phenomenon must take place with respect to the airborne environment. Unless and until the true, or at least a truer, cost of polluting the atmosphere is reached, we will be left roasting in our own CO2 discharges. It's not complicated. We can pay for the cost of air travel, including will raise the cost to realistic levels, or we continue to fly around the world at cheap fares and simply hope that the greenhouse effect magically disappears. Now, let's talk and let us go to, this is just a few of them that we trade on here at the site. We've got the Iberdrola, the largest electric company in the world, produces from hydro, wind, natural gas, and nuclear. It's the largest wind farmer in the world. It operates in Spain, the UK, Brazil, and the United States. Iberdrola. We'll take a look at that in a moment. Schneider Electric. It's a French company that supplies power to commercial and industrial users, a certain low power, high power installations worldwide. They are a huge corporation. EDF, Électricité de France, the world's largest nuclear fleet of electric, in my opinion. RWE is a multi-source electricity provider using coal, natural gas, and renewables, and it operates in the UK, Holland, Turkey, and the US. They're enormous. Power all over Europe, all over the world, actually. Nordex is a German wind electric generator based throughout the EU. And the E.ON is a Euroland-wide electricity provider. They are the grid operators. Last mile. So let's stop for a moment. Look at some real-world examples of assets that we can trade. We're going to what I have turned. Well, here's the energy mix. So we can take a look at. Oh, sorry. Let me bring it back up again. Here's the energy mix. We've take a look. Not doing so well. This is a daily chart. It's going down. Well, this is for obvious reasons. The energy crisis in Europe is wreaking havoc there, and can't go. Remember, they're the guys that deliver power all over the nation. So they're suffering, as are many power. But you'll see that some of them are not. There's a similar pattern, not very encouraging. RWE fairly flat. Electricity. This, by the way, is the my guess is the this is July. This is when the energy crunch really started to bite. Here we go. It's taken a big leap up, likely to go more. We like that very much because it's the world's leading nuclear power generator. These people have decades, about half a century of nuclear power experience, safe nuclear production. We like EDF. Here's Schneider taking a slightly better turn, looking positive now. Above the Total, you know those guys, BP London, Iberdrola. Also, they're all tracking a similar pattern. They're all looking up in the last few months as the energy crisis starts to bite in Europe. ExxonMobil, Saudi Aramco. Let me just bring that into focus. Here we go. Saudi Aramco looking fairly flat. Marathon Oil, time now. We like Marathon Oil. Marathon is an interesting company. They're not one of the oil majors, but they make their money exploiting and recycling lubricants. So they're a progressive, old line company, by the way, around since the 1930s, but they're a progressive, modern hydrocarbon manufacturer and supplier. That's Marathon Oil, MRL. Tesla, Royal Dutch Shell, Chevron, Chinese Petrol, CSIQ, is Canadian Solar. Yeah, Canadian Solar. Also having a difficult time, but we think they may return. I also want to draw your attention to green, just in general, green stocks. Are trying to deal with some of the problems that we mentioned earlier. For example, if you take Lafarge, focus them in again, I'm sorry. Sometimes they drift out. Daily chart. Lafarge has been in a trading band. Lafarge is a concrete and aggregates company, but they're very progressive. And while they're, remember, these guys are all, Lafarge is French, and they're all stuck in the European energy malaise at the moment. They does the HCG is the Heidelberg Cement Group. They're doing much, much better. Daily chart. No, they're not doing so much better. They're all greatly because of the European energy crunch, but we think they're going to come back. These guys are figuring out how to make concrete with a much smaller carbon footprint. For Heidelberg Cement as well as Lafarge. Schneider, we mentioned Nordex, Veolia, waste solutions and power generation from waste. Siemens, of course. Siemens is the giant energy producer and looking good, approaching the 200-day from a below on heightened volume, a good sign. KAG, I forget. ThyssenKrupp, of course. ThyssenKrupp, again, I don't know why they're on this. ThyssenKrupp has had, you notice they're all tracking a similar pattern. They're up for the last bit. ThyssenKrupp is going to do very well out of the energy crisis as well, because they make the actual motors and generators, wind turbines, as well as the housings in general. I don't know if they make the actual blades or the towers, but they make the generators inside the turbine. So that's Thyssen Krupp also looking very good. Of course, we know batteries in electric vehicles. And Berdola, we saw these guys in the other charts. First, let's go to the daily on this. First, among many of the things they do, and they do, they facilitate the redirection of power from small generators, that is to say, rooftop generators, and back into the grid. They do it very efficiently of that power as well. So First Solar is a tremendous company. We're very bullish on that firm for green. So I think that about does it for our presentation tonight, ladies and gentlemen. It's about as long as I like to go anyway. Let's open the floor to some questions. There is a lot of hype in this business. There's a lot of hype as to how much this is going to save us. There's a lot of money being thrown at this, frankly, in a wasteful way. I find trading alternatives to these, generally speaking, less efficient and even inefficient methods. Nuclear industry, we talked about the different alternative energy manufacturers, some of them making better strides than others. The non-electric companies, there are alternatives. There are, Saint-Gobain, I didn't mention this one. Let's take a look at this. Makes the glass for, and again, tracking the European debacle, has a tremendous potential as well. They also make the smart glass that can adjust the thermodynamics of giant buildings that have glass face. The Saint-Gobain is these are long-term trades in our opinion, less speculative. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave it at that. If there are no questions, let me just say, first let me open up the poll to a few questions. I'm going to open up this poll, and I'm going to launch the first question. Was the host thorough in his presentation? Just give a quick answer to these. I'll leave them up for a minute each one, and then I'll switch to the next one. I think there's 5 of them. It doesn't take that long. And of course, feel free to ask any other questions you may have as well. And this, after we're done with the poll, that you can fill out, and there's free text. You can they're not multiple choice questions, it's free text answers as well. All right, I'm going to close this one, ladies and gentlemen, and move on to the next one. Okay with everybody? We'll move to the next poll question. So let me say while you're filling out the polls that, for those of you who are members of the house, who are our clients, our regular clients, you know that this is the example of the kind of quality work that we do put out for our clients. Signals and daily updates and briefs and ebooks and all sorts of product that we distribute to our clients in an effort to keep them informed and up to date and prepared to engage with the world of capital markets and to take a little money out when they can. And for those of you who are considering opening an online account, please consider opening up an account with us here at Alvexo. We're stand-up, upright, straight-shooting brokers We do the best we can for our clients, and we do work hard. We're not right all the time. We don't pretend to be right all the time. We make plenty of mistakes like everybody else. But the sine qua non in our business is making more money than you lose. For lose, you will. We all lose. Don't let anybody kid you. But in our business, losing, like many successful, like people in many difficult competitive businesses, you have to know how to turn a loss into a gain, and we help you with that as well. And we do make more money over the long run than we lose, and that is the sine qua non of success in this business. But make no mistake, we lose. You should only be trading with money you can afford to lose, because this is not a game for the faint of heart. So let's move on to the next question. In the poll is we're almost done, ladies and gentlemen. Bit disheartening. Climate change is real, but a good reality check. Thanks, says Paula. Yeah, it is disheartening, Paula. And I'll tell you what, and I agree with you. And believe me, it wasn't any fun doing the research for this. All right. It wasn't. I mean, it's a bleak affair. We live in this world of electric luxury, and we kid ourselves into thinking that, you know, it's going to go away and it'll be all better. And it's not. It's not anytime soon at all. And there's a school of thought, I didn't really go into this, Paula, but that says we really need to get as bad off as we can as soon as we can, so that we can start getting better off sooner than later. In other words, give everybody a Humvee, have them drive around to their heart's content until we can't even see the sunlight anymore. Then it gets to be 1,000,000 degrees, and then people say, I get it, we better straighten up and fly right. That's a bit extreme, but yeah, it is disheartening. But it's time to have. I'm going to close this poll also, ladies and gentlemen. We'll move on to the next one. It's time we do get what we're facing here. This is 2 more left here, and then we'll be done. Yeah, it is disheartening, Paula. I don't, Paolo, excuse me, not Paula, Paolo. And there's nothing we can do about it. But as a trader, I believe, and I'm sure you all believe, that reality is what we need to try and take any money out of this world as traders, which is what we seek to do. And by being Pollyanna-ish and pie in the sky, it ain't going to do it. At least not in the long run, for sure. But thank you for your comment. You're right. You're absolutely right, Paolo. My pleasure. My pleasure, sir. All right, I'm going to close this one, and we'll go down to one more question on the poll, and then we'll end for the evening. Whoop, sorry. How can I do it? Here we go. We'll launch that one. Okay, this is the last poll question. And with that, we'll end the session. And so while you're filling this out, let me just say, ladies and gentlemen, that on behalf of the staff and the management here at Alvexo, we're always deeply humbled and gratified by your continuing patronage of us as your online brokers. And again, as I mentioned, those of you who are seeking to open an online account, please consider opening one with us. And so I'll end on that note by saying that I'm your host, Seth Julian, wishing you all, ladies and gentlemen, the ability to trade with confidence. Bye-bye for now.